Hello, everyone. So I'm David, and I would like to get to know you better in the beginning. So please raise your hand if you use unit tests in your Android code base. Unit tests? OK, almost everyone. And now raise your hand if you use screenshot tests. Just a few. OK, so this talk is definitely for you. So first, a bit about me. I'm David Vávra. I am from Prague in Europe. I am a Google developer expert for Android, Google Play, and Google Pay. My main job is leading Android development in Škoda Auto. That's a car manufacturer based in Czechia. And I also have my own app called Saddle Up. It's a group expense tracker, if you're interested. So now, what's screenshot testing? What is it about? So basically, screenshot testing is taking screenshots of your UI components in your app and then comparing these images in various states. So in your Git repository, you have a set of baseline images. They are called baseline. And you compare those images to this baseline. If the images are different, the screenshot test fails. And if it fails, the CI should also display the differences between images, so you can see what's different. It's important to say that screenshot test is not testing user interaction. It's not testing that user is clicking on something. That's a job for another test, like Espresso. Screenshot tests are just taking snapshots of your UI components in some states. So you provide the static data to the UI components, and you take a screenshot how it looks. But the important part is that you can take many screenshots and many states. So you can have like hundreds of screenshot tests. So why to use screenshot testing? So in most code bases today, it's a best practice to cover your code base by unit tests. In most architectures, you have multiple layers, like data layer and view models and stuff like that. So you compare it with, you test it with unit tests, but you don't unit test the presentation layer, your UI. So usually this UI layer is tested by UI testing. Most common library is called Espresso. But UI testing is hard to maintain and also flaky. Flaky means that it won't success every time because there are some issues with the emulator or something, and it will fail, but it's not the problem of your code, but the testing framework. So what I ended up doing in most companies, I created just like basic, going through the app, like the basic use case, and I didn't test like all the different small features. And that's why screenshot testing is helpful, because you can think of screenshot tests like unit tests. It's like unit tests for your UI. So they are usually not testing whole screens. They are testing just small components, same as unit tests. They are much more stable. So they always create the same image from the same static data. And you can have many states for the UI components. Not just one. So you can test really all the different states of your UI in all the features. It's a great way to catch regression bugs. In my experience, it's really fast if it's integrated in your CI. And screenshot tests are also much easier to write than, for example, Espresso. You just put static data, pass it to your UI component, and that's it. You don't need to think about that much. It's also much easier to maintain if they broke. But in the beginning, I asked you who is using screenshot tests, and just a few of the people raised their hands. So why is that? Why is not that common today? So I think there are some hurdles today. There are not like widely used libraries that everybody knows, like, I don't know, retrofit for network or something. There is one library from Facebook, but they don't maintain it much. Also, another hurdle is that the screenshot test on CI, they need a device or emulator, which is pain to set up, especially on CI. It takes a time to start the emulator on like some cloud machine. Then there are some problems with the emulator, memory runs out or something. You have to maintain it. So that's another hurdle. And yeah, when the CI is running, it takes like tens of minutes with the emulator to take all the screenshot tests. So it can slow down the development, which some teams don't like. And the last one, you have to write the tests separately from the code. So it's not such a big deal, but sometimes you are in a rush, like just deliver features, and like then you don't have time to write tests separately. And today I want to show you a way how to avoid all of these hurdles. So none of that will apply for the way I will show you today. Let's start with Jetpack Compose. So screenshot tests are really great with Jetpack Compose. And it's a recommended way how to create UIs today. It's a replacement of Android views. So I highly recommend using that in new apps or even like new features of your existing app. So in Jetpack Compose, you have this preview annotated methods. And you provide sample data to your UI components, and it renders directly in Android Studio. It's a great feature to speed up development because you don't need to run your app every time. You can easily iterate on your UI in Jetpack Compose. And great news is these previews can be turned automatically into screenshot tests. So you already have this sample data, you already have all this set up, so why not to use it for screenshot tests? You don't need to write screenshot tests separately in like separate class. You can just use these previews. So let's see some code. This is what we will be screenshot testing today. It's really a minimal example. So there is one composable, which is just a text, just showing hello, and there is one preview method, which is previewing this. It's really simple. And now I want to introduce you to 3 libraries, which will help us to do that. So first library is called Showcase. It's from Airbnb. And what it does, it processes all your preview annotated methods, and it generates this showcase of your UI components. So that's the main purpose of the app. It looks like this. Like it's a new activity in your app, which like from all your previews generates this UI, and you can browse it. It's a great tool if you can put it to your like non-production app, and it's a great communication tool between developers and other people in the company. So it's great for communication between developers and designers, because designers can see the UI components like right in their phone, and they can see how you implemented those from Figma, for example, or from like design system, and you can have a talk about these components. They can also see what's implemented, so they can use it in new features. It's a great tool also for communication between you and QA, so quality assurance. QA team can look at this and see what's covered by screenshot tests. So they can focus their work, maybe some manual testing or some exploratory testing, on something else. This is already covered, so they don't need to test it that much. And lastly, it's great for product managers. So they can see what components are there, and like if they are thinking about new feature, maybe it will be much easier if they build it with these existing components, or it will be harder if they have to build a completely new component. So it can help with estimations. But for us, most important feature of this showcase library is that it generates all the plumbing for the screenshot testing. Another library I want to introduce you is called Paparazzi. It's a library from Cash App. And what it does, it renders your composables without a device or emulator called instrumentation. So you don't need to start this. It actually uses like Android Studio rendering behind the scenes, like what's in the Android Studio, so it uses. And it runs in unit test target. And what's the greatest thing is that it's running in seconds, like it's really fast. So it speeds up your development process, your CI and everything. And the last library I want to show you is called Test Parameter Injector. It's a library from Google. And it's a general tool. It allows, when you have unit tests and you have this test annotated method, it can create multiple unit tests from like one single test method. So it's really helpful for screenshot testing because you can create variants of the same test for like a dark mode or like a larger font, maybe some different localizations, stuff like that. So you can really have hundreds or even thousands of screenshot tests with all these combinations. So let's show you some code. At the end of my presentation, there is a link for GitHub with all this code. This is just simplified. This is the most important class, which like glues everything together. You don't need to remember. So there is the Paparazzi setup over there. You specify that you want pixel 5 without soft buttons. And in this test method, you write this test parameters, and you specify, in this case, that you want the font scale 1.0 and 1.5, so it will generate like larger font, normal font, and the theme will be light or dark, light mode or dark mode. And the rest of it is just glue and like taking the screenshots from the Airbnb library. So when you have all of this set up, now how to run it? So Paparazzi has these two commands in Gradle. First one is record Paparazzi, and the debug is like your build variant. So what it does the screenshot tests of all your previews and saves them into your Git repository. So you want to do that in the beginning when you are setting everything up just once, and then it will update with each pull request. And the second one is called Verify Paparazzi Debug, and that's actually comparing the new screenshots with the old screenshots. And if there are some differences, it will fail the test, and it will show you the differences, what's different. So you just need these two Gradle commands. So if you run it, on our example, it will create like this 4 screenshots of the UI I showed you earlier, like a simple text. So it's a combination of light mode, dark mode, and also font scale 1.0 and 1.5. So now let's talk about CI integration, how to integrate this into your development process. So I think CI should verify the screenshots with every pull request, so you never like break your screenshot testing. And in the pull request, when the images are different, it should fail the validation of the pull request and somehow show the differences, what's different in the images. Now there are two ways what could happen if it fails. So either it's not intended change, and that means that just the screenshot test discovered some regression bug, and you should fix this regression bug. But in some cases, it's intended change. Like you are creating a new feature, so there will be new screenshot tests, or maybe you are modifying existing feature, and so it should be modified. So in this case, you should have a way how to make these new screenshots the new baseline. And now I will show you the concrete example in a CI called GitHub Actions. It's my favorite CI because it's integrated greatly with GitHub. I have most of my repos in GitHub. It's great because it's free for 2,000 minutes a month. So for like hobby projects, you don't have to pay. It even works for private repositories. There are a lot of community-built actions which you can use. This is just an example. It will work in any CI. It's just it's my favorite one. I think also widely used. So in GitHub Actions, you have these YAML files where you configure everything. So on the top, you just specify the trigger that this will be launched for every pull request to the main branch, and it will run on Ubuntu. And then you run your verify Paparazzi debug command in Gradle. And if this passes, everything is fine. Pull request is green. You can merge it. But if it fails, I have this bash script which will actually take the new screenshots, push them into separate branch, and later you can show the differences. This bash script is in my code. Link will be at the end of the presentation. And this will post a comment to the pull request with a link for comparing the two branches. And GitHub actually does a pretty good job of showing you the differences between images. They have this built in. So you don't need any more system for comparing the images. Let's see how it looks on some sample pull requests. So if it fails, GitHub Actions posts this comment into the pull request that the screenshots failed, and there is a link called See Differences. And if you click this link, it will show like comparing these two branches in GitHub UI. And GitHub has this slider where you can compare the images easily. In this case, you can see that one screenshot have in the word paparazzi, there is in one variation there is one Z and the other is two Z's. So you can see that maybe this is some regression bug. Number of Z's is not good. Okay. So that's all for my presentation, and I want to summarize the most important parts. So screenshot tests are like unit tests for your UI. You can create many of them. If you use Jetpack Compose, you can use this preview feature, and it will generate everything for you. You don't need to write the screenshot test separately. It's also possible to use screenshot tests with legacy Android views, but there is more setup needed, and you need to write these screenshot tests separately. Use this showcase library. It generates tests from all your previews. It has also the added benefit for this UI for your designers, QA, PMs. But it's most important, it's like creates this glue for screenshot testing. This Paparazzi library allows you to run the verification without instrumentation. That means device or emulator. And this test parameter injector library allows to create multi-variants of the same composable, like dark mode, font scale, and stuff like that. And CI integration is quite easy. You can use any CI. I have good experience with GitHub Actions. and my test code is all about that. So here is the link for the code. And I see I have last 5 minutes, so I have some bonus slides later I can show you in the last 5 minutes. So does everybody has this link copied? Good. So I have 2 bonus slides if I have time. So first, how about storage of these images in your Git repository? So my experience from my previous project, we had about 300 screenshots, and they are really like small PNGs, so they don't take much of the space. These 300 screenshots took 12 megabytes, and we store them directly in a Git repository. It's okay for a while, but it can bloat over time because Git remembers all the previous screenshots, and it can bloat. So Paparazzi library actually recommends to use Git large file storage. It's a system of Git made for like saving binary data like these screenshots, and it can help. In Paparazzi README, there is how to set it up. And the last bonus slide is iOS. So some people ask me like how if they want to start this new process, it should also work for iOS, not just Android. And good news is that actually screenshot testing came from iOS. Like I learned about screenshot testing from iOS developers in my company, and I try to figure out a way how to make it work for Android. So it's more widely used there, and there are more mature libraries, I would say, than on Android because it's been there for a longer time. And here is a link to a Swift library that my team was using for screenshot testing. Okay, so that's really all from me, and thank you.